25 years ago, Jonathan was a student of philosophy and comparative religion with a specialization in Tibetan Buddhism at the Graduate Theological Union here in Berkeley, many of which you guys are familiar with as a consortium of graduate and theological institutions. And then Jonathan has always been deeply interested in the things that give our lives meaning. Many of our conversations over the last 10 years have talked about those deeper topics. Soon after finishing there, he started a career in the financial services world that included investment management experience at Morgan Stanley, Payne Weber, Solomon Smith Barney. Now he's the founder and president of 3 companies. First one that is where he's most active is the holistic wealth management firm that he founded in 2001, the DO Wealth Management firm. Secondly, the Happiness Dividend, which is a personal finance blog and education company. And then soon a book that'll be out with the same title that's pending. Again, Happiness Dividend. And then the third company is Forward Giving Alliance, which is an alliance of asset management firms that serve small to medium-sized nonprofits that want reduced fees and then social responsibility and a commitment to return 100% of the profits back to the local community. Jonathan believes that the commitment to family, health, personal achievement, lifelong learning, generosity, and maintaining a positive and supportive attitude are keys to a successful life. And I know some of you are clients of his here today, and you obviously see that in the life. The authenticity of Jonathan and knowing him over the years, I know is a big part of why you trust him with your wealth development. So I'm glad you guys are here today. Jonathan's active in his community, of course, even by Berkeley standards, for Berkeley people that appreciate that, right? He's currently a Berkeley Rotarian and a member of the Sustainable Business Alliance, which the executive director is here. The Berkeley Breakfast Club. He's the board secretary of the Institution of Environmental Entrepreneurship and Meta Sustainability, and some of you are familiar, and serves on the investment committee for his children's school endowment. And Jonathan is also past chairman of the board of the Berkeley Chamber and many other leadership and committee roles throughout the city. He has a lot of personal interests, like we all do, in a cool place like the Bay Area in Berkeley. Most of his time revolves around time and family. Jonathan enjoys entertaining, travel, food, and wine. We need to swap notes, which we haven't in a while on that. Great outdoors, great literature, loves skiing with his family, and is passionate about the beautiful game of soccer. As a fan, player, and coach, Jonathan and his wife Kate have been married for 10 years and make their home in the Berkeley Hills. With their son Eli and daughter Annie, they enjoy the hiking trails and the merry-go-round up at Tilden Park at their doorstep. And for me, as a friend of 10 years, I want you to welcome Jonathan as he presents his take on the topic of work, creativity, and
wow, that's quite the intro. I sent him that and I hoped that he would edit that. He did, he read the whole thing. So thanks, Rod. Thank you, Bakari, for having me here today. As he said, we've known each other for a decade, and we've met a lot on the topics of human flourishing and happiness. And he started out as a mentor to me. When I first came into Berkeley, I looked to Rod as someone that I could trust and ask questions of, and it's continued throughout our friendship. We've always agreed on the critical nature of work in our own fulfillment and our own flourishing. And we've noticed that in ourselves and in the people around us. So when he asked me to do this, I was absolutely thrilled. The topic of I'm Buddha and this is Jesus, that's a little awkward. But I was thrilled, but as I dug into it, I got more and more nervous because as it turns out, Buddhism in general has very little to say about work, specifically as it relates to our own human happiness. It's not that there's nothing to go on. There's this topic called right livelihood, where Buddhist doctrine sort of gives us an idea of we should be honest, we should do legal work, we should be pleasant, we shouldn't harm other people. And Buddha gives us five things we definitely shouldn't do, prescriptive 5 things. Weapons manufacture, meat production, I don't know what we had for lunch, but meat production, human trafficking, intoxicants, poison, 5 things you want to avoid on the path to enlightenment. But this doesn't really help us move from work to flourishing. It doesn't connect those 2 things to create happiness. So there's a whole other subset of conversations that started in 1966 with a gentleman who wrote this, an article that said, talk about Buddhist economics. So Buddhist economics, while important, because I think we should probably have a conversation, if not a revolution, about why in our culture it's more important to think about how we get more than it is for us to consider what's enough. And frankly, for myself, this is my own deepest shame, because I don't know where to draw that line for myself. I don't know when to stop being productive. I mean, if I enjoy creating more, shouldn't I just keep creating more? If by creating more I can give more back, should I do that? Or is that the culture? Is that the culture saying more and more and more? Is there enough? My own therapist says there's enough, but we're working on that. So Buddhist economics, it would honor individual as more than a unit of production, and it would honor the environment as more than a set of resources. However important this might be, it's still more systemic than it is about the individual and the individual's flourishing. So I didn't know where to go from here. I didn't know where to turn. So I have to start this with a bit of a story. There's two young fish swimming in the water. They meet a wiser, older fish swimming towards them. And as the older fish, larger, wiser, approaches them, he says, "Good morning, boys. How's the water?" And they swim past each other. The young fish trying to act like, "Oh yeah, we know what that meant." Just say nothing until they get out of earshot from the wiser fish. And one of them turns to the other and says, "What the hell is water?" So the point of the story, obviously, is to grab your attention and to sort of focus your intellect. But at the same time, it's meaningful because it's sometimes the most obvious and important realities that are the most difficult to see and to talk about. Perhaps the most important point we can make about a calling is that it's not individual. The Buddha and Buddhist teaching, I tend to believe, specifically avoid the idea of talking about individual flourishing because they think if we focus on the individual, we reduce the flourishing. Earlier this month, on the NPR blog, there was a discussion of the difference between Eastern and Western thought. And the question was asked, describe who you are. It was asked of Americans, and you get a picture of rugged individualism, self-made men and women. You ask Japanese, you get a picture of cooperation, of codependence, of working together. Now, further on in the article, it's a University of Virginia study, and the study goes on further to talk about how this has developed over thousands of years as a result of the differing farming techniques required to grow rice versus wheat or corn. We self-identify, as it turns out, with collectivism if we have to work together to create our food system. We also self-identify, that happens in Southeast Asia. We also self-identify with individualism if we work solo to create our food system. Right? Does that make sense? So you fast forward a few thousand years, you start to see breaks in some of this, and you start to sense an anxiety about personal success, and I think the last 4 or 5 years are a pretty good example of this. So the question is, does this rugged individualism still work? Or whether it maybe has a limitation. The most stark indication of this for me is there's a study that's done, or a series of polls that's done every single year, that asks whether parents think their children will be better off. For decades, since the mid-19th century, the answer has always been yes. Parents have always thought that their children would be better off than they were, financially, emotionally, all these different ways. About 4 or 5 years ago, the numbers started to slip. And today, it's actually the majority says no. This terrifies me. Our optimism is waning. So, my father told me a story once about his father. My grandfather was a Wild West era rancher. Doesn't get more rugged individualistic than this. Nonetheless, when a disaster struck or something happened, the community would pull together and you could see a lot of collective action. There was a storm in the summer, and lightning struck my grandfather's barn, and the tool shed and the tools and the tractor burned to the ground, destroyed them. They were ruined. The smoke obviously comes up from this fire, and surrounding folks, families see it, and they come and they check what happened, why, what happened here. My grandfather tells them the story. They're ruined, it's over. The next day, these same farmers, these same ranchers that are around the surrounding community show up. Around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they work all day. They get up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., they work all day in the fields with their animals. 4 or 5 in the afternoon, they loaded up their flatbed trailers, they hooked them to their tractors, they put materials on there, they put tools on there, and they drag them out. And so you have neighbors coming from all over the place, and they help rebuild the barn. But that's not enough, right? The tools are gone. So for the next multiple seasons, those families are there to support sowing the crops, harvesting the crops, until my grandfather can finally afford to buy another tractor, afford to borrow the money to get another tractor. And so they rebuild together. I don't see this happening that much anymore. I don't see this collective behavior working to support somebody happening as much in the business world. It's dominated by huge multinational corporations and global information networks. Business competition and job competition is now more seen as a zero-sum game. You all know what that is, right? When you win, someone loses. When you lose, someone else has won. This upsets us. Scarcity, this thing in our heads, scarcity is taking over where abundance once thrived. It's no wonder really that we're asking someone else, our parents, our neighbors, our extended families, our government, to provide for us. We no longer believe that we're able to provide for ourselves, and that makes us afraid. At the same time, work in our world is being debased or has been debased. It's become a necessary evil. Employers look at labor as a cost, and employees look at work as a sacrifice for one's leisure. A fair wage for an honest day's work has become compensation for that sacrifice. We've somehow squeezed all the goodness out of the work, all the non-financial benefits. The employer's goal becomes maximum output with minimum employment cost. Employee's goal becomes maximum income with minimum effort or time spent. We're in opposition because we're seeing this as a zero-sum game. Now you've got to think of this embedded within the need for an entire self-help section on live-work balance in every bookstore. You've seen these books? Has anyone read Live Work Balance? No one but me. Okay. The whole premise of life and balance exists because we don't think these two things work naturally in tandem. What specifically are we trying to accomplish by creating this balance? Are we trying to get enough of both? Are we trying to make sure that we don't get too much of one or the other? And why is it always we're balancing work versus other things? It's my work versus my home life, or my work versus my health, or my work versus my play. It's never my play versus my home life, or my home life versus my health, right? You see the framing there? The work is always deletive of other things in our lives. So I got to ask: is this because is the work the wrong work? Maybe we need a work that integrates better in our lives, that is additive, not subtractive. And I think the point of Vocari in our conversations is to teach or show that this is possible, that it's preferable, and perhaps give you a couple tips on how to make that happen. So work in our current definition is a means to a financial end. Work properly understood yields a huge, tremendous human payoff, in addition to the financial payoff. So how do we get there from here? I think there's 3 things that Buddhism can help us with. And I'm sure that were there a Buddha sitting there, they would say, no, this is not true, but I'm trying to pull it into here and make it happen. So we need to, first thing, we need to develop a calm, quiet space from which we can work. First thing, calm, quiet space. This requires a story. I have a 9-year-old boy, his name is Eli. He's amazing, he's brilliant, he's sharp, he reads all the time, he's incredible with math, he's a great soccer player. He's also a 9-year-old boy, so that comes with impulse control issues. So Kate and I were headed to a ski trip in Canada. Kate's my wife. We're going skiing in Canada. Grandma and Grandpa were watching the kids. To get to this particular location in Canada, you get up obscenely early in the morning, you get on a plane, fly to California, Montana, You get on a bus, you drive north for a few hours, and you've got to get there in time to catch the cat that then drives you up into the hill. Cat being a big tractor, snow tractor. Okay, so we're on a schedule. We land in Kalispell, Montana. We're gathering our bag, looking for the bus that we're supposed to catch. Our phones go off. They're ringing, they're dinging, there's emails, and there's texts, and there's voicemails coming. And, we're just check this out. Okay, what's going on? Turns out there'd been an injury at school. Now, my kids are fine. Eli, however, hit a girl with a rock. So I'll let you know, there's a lot of blood, no permanent damage. When he tells the story, he says that he and a friend had found a dead spider, and they were performing a ceremony to burying the spider. And one of the girls in the class was singing and dancing and running around them, and it was annoying to him. And so he gave her a verbal warning. I mean, he warned her. He gave her a verbal warning. Please stop. We're busy. We're doing this. This is serious. She didn't stop. She kept dancing. She kept singing. Eli stood, grabbed a rock. Right, you know where this is going. He says, when he tells a story, he says, I intended to throw it over her head. I play catch with him. He doesn't miss that way. So he grabs a rock and he throws it, hits her right in the nose. Right in the nose. So what happened there? He was angry, he was frustrated, he was embarrassed. He had an impulse, he grabbed a rock, he acted, and there was an injury. As adults, rocks aren't involved anymore. Usually, I hope. But still, we act far too often on impulse. I catch myself doing it all the time. I catch clients doing it. Some of you. Do you ever notice you have an impulse, and you know you should probably continue forward, but you do it anyways? I do. It's happened to me. So for Eli, who was 9, this is a teaching moment, right? I suggested to the teachers that in addition to whatever they saw fit as a consequence, Eli and I would start meditating together. And we've spent in 5 to 10 minute increments hours and hours and hours together in the last 3 months meditating. Why? Why would I suggest this for a 9-year-old? Eli needs to create a calm moment, a space, just a brief instant of time between action and reaction, in which he can notice the rise of the anger, the tightening of his muscles, his arm, his chest, and his back, maybe the twisting of his body before he releases the rock. He needs a tool to slow down the frames as they pass in front of him so he can make a better decision between the frames instead of just acting on autopilot. In Buddhism, we often talk about the arising, the abiding, and the falling away of our thoughts. And when you sit for a long time, and many, many times, you start to see the arising and abiding and falling away of your thoughts. We need to be able to see, he needs this, but we all need to be able to see the rising thoughts so we don't react impulsively. But there are a couple of challenges for this. First, it's really easy and appropriate for adults, parents, and teachers to work with children on creating this calm space. They expect to be taught, we expect to teach. With adults, it's a little different. Right? It's not that you're not smart enough, it's that you already know. And who am I to tell you any different? What is that? That's rugged individualism. I can do it myself. And second, it's really easy to catch and address when it comes to a decision that involves violence. Obviously we're not allowed at work to punch our neighbor. That's not okay. Okay? But have you ever taken credit for work that somebody else did? Have you ever stood in a meeting and watched the boss receive a round of applause for something that someone else did and not share that praise? Have you ever done work that's just good enough, but it's not your best? Turn it in. That's okay. There's a lot of things we can do. Work really gives us a chance to exercise our emotional intelligence, our forgiveness, our tolerance. It forces us to work with other people to solve challenges. It forces us out of our egocentricness. It's a good thing, right? If we can overcome the petty frustrations, work helps us become better. If we can become proactive instead of reactive, opportunities do open up for us. But we must refrain from impulsivity and from throwing rocks. The second thing we need to do, or second thing we get for Buddhism, is we need to develop our own good intentions. We need to understand where we are and develop from there. There are lots of different kinds of Buddhist texts out there. Has anyone read practice texts. You know what these are? Okay. Practice texts always begin with an appreciation of this wonderful human rebirth. You see, in Buddhism, on the path to enlightenment, it's only humans that get to be enlightened, because we can do the work, we can meditate, we can practice. There's lots of different realms you can be born in, but only humans have that great opportunity. Okay. So, the fact that you're born human is, in this life, incredibly lucky. You shouldn't squander it. Also, in the work world, I mean, where are we? We're in Berkeley. We're in a leading public institute, in the country, if not in the world. We live in the United States of America. We've won the birth lottery. Right? We are so incredibly blessed to begin with. So the question becomes, it's not a matter of us doing the right thing. It's not a matter of right or wrong or good or bad. It's the question of, are you willing to do the work of deciding what your path will include? Are you willing to set the intention and follow it? Choosing what to focus on, what to do, and then actually follow through, focusing on it and doing it. Will I remain, as is my natural proclivity, self-centered, or will I display gratitude for all the wonder around me? Or will I be angry over petty inconveniences? Will I try to understand what's going on in the world around me? Will I try to understand what's going on inside me? Or will I allow myself to be hypnotized by my own inner monologue? Or worse, will the hypnosis come from NBC or NPR? Everything happens, this is Buddhism, everything happens due to preceding causes. All causes lead to results that are beneficial or harmful. The primary sources of causes are the intentions that originate within us. Some of our intentions are deliberate, conscious. Others we may or may not even know about. The more you understand and create deliberate intentions, the less the hidden ones have control over you. Our intentions bring us great responsibility, but also tremendous opportunity. The third thing I think Buddhism teaches us, and I think there's going to be tremendous agreement across cultures on this, we need to exercise our compassion muscles. There are only two emotions. Two. Wonderfully, you get to choose from which you will operate. Also, maybe with difficulty, you have to choose from which you will operate. What are the two emotions? Love and fear. I love that. She's a plant. Thanks, Michelle. So greed, anger, envy, jealousy, all fear. You're greedy because you're afraid you won't have enough, or because someone else has more. You're angry because you're afraid someone got the better of you. You're jealous because you're afraid you might lose something. It's your choice. You operate out of fear in a world of scarcity, or you operate out of love in a world of abundance. If you operate from fear, you close yourself off from others, you limit how much you put into your work, to your relationships, to your life. You keep score, you die 1,000 little deaths every single day. If you operate out of love, you're open to everything. You're grateful for everything. You see possibility in everything. You're reborn in every moment. The human mind can't contain both the intention created out of fear and the intention created out of love at the same time. So choose wisely. And while choosing, you have to remember that you are the product of 3.8 billion years of evolution. You've had access to better education than 90% of the population that has ever existed on the earth. You probably have in your pocket more computing and technological information power that's been existed on Earth 70 years ago. What is it exactly that you can't do? So, final quick story. Running out of time, I'm sure. Okay, there's two monks walking in the mountains next to the monastery. Has to be monks at some point, right? Okay. There's two monks walking in the monastery, in the mountains next to the monastery. The wind is blowing. They look up at the top of the monastery, and there's a flag that's whipping in the wind. And one of them looks to the other one and says, some of you heard this before, it's the flag that's moving, it's not the wind. And the second one looks back and says, it's the wind that's moving, it's not the flag. There's a third monk. He's not looking at the monastery. It's like he's looking at the bright blue morning sky. And this is the conversation happening behind him. And he laughs, chuckles to himself. It's not the flag. It's not the wind. It's your mind that's moving. And I would submit to you that our relationship with work is much the same way. Stuff happens to us, we react. It's your mind that's moving. In order for that relationship to change, we must change. And the most powerful path to this end is calm, intentional love.